Welcome to Varsity Sports Network here on the VSN Orlando channel. I'm Bobby Latmore, host of Varsity Sports Network on VSN. And it's a great privilege to bring you a new show that we're going to be launching here tonight. The new show is called Be True Sports with Balin Trujillo. And just to kind of give you an update on what Balin's about and stuff like that, Balin is a local product here in the Orlando area. He's gone through high school here in Orlando, and it's been just a pleasure to meet him. Balin is a high school teacher. Balin is a commentator on a local ESPN high school scoreboard show here locally in Orlando. Also, he does the general manager for the 7-on-7s here for Florida Fire here in the Orlando area. And he also runs a professional quarterback training camp. Is there anything else you don't do, Balin?
I mean, all things considered, if you look at everything I do through social media, or, you know, if you follow me around or you're part of my circle, you would think that I have no time on my hands, to be honest with you. But yeah, man, I just, the main thing is keeping these kids, the main focus on everything that I do. And when you have that in your mind and as a focal point, you tend to put your feet in a lot of different areas. And I've been blessed to have opportunities to be in different, categories as far as training and coaching and, making relationships and traveling across the country and putting on big quarterback camps and, working in the biggest camps like Elite 11 and, doing my own camp called Be True Advanced QB Camp with a bunch of former NFL players. And through this coronavirus, starting my own virtual school, which is great, reaching out to quarterbacks all across the country. And meeting guys like Kurt Warner, Jeff Blake, and Daniel Jones. I mean, it's just been crazy, man. So yeah, if you look at my lifestyle, you'd be like, man, how does this guy have time? But when you balance and you're organized, you tend to do a lot of different things and be successful at it.
Balin, we talk about, I got together with you a couple months ago, and we talked about putting a show together related to you and related to what you do with these kids. What are you looking for in this show? When we put this show together, we talked about training, we talked about some other stuff going on and everything like that, but you truly want a little bit more out of the show than just kind of just getting tips, don't you?
Yeah, I'm looking for people to understand who I am as a person. I know a lot of people see me again through social media or the high school football scoreboard show or quarterback trainings or traveling and putting on big camps and stuff like that. But I want people to know me for me, what I stand for when it comes to faith, family, and football, and Christ being the center and focal point of my life. And obviously the journey of coaching and training these kids, along with my wife. She's a big reason that I'm able to do the things that I'm able to do, even though she might not like it sometimes. But I just want people to understand me and the lifestyle that I live, and being a trainer and a coach, and as well as a teacher and influencer, social media, all that stuff, just so that they know who I am instead of just judging just because of what they see or the things I'm involved in, and actually get to know the heart and not just the product.
Talk to me. You talked faith, family, and football. First thing on your list was faith, which I thought was very commendable on your part. Tell me a little bit about your faith.
Yeah, so I'm a strong Christian, grew up in a Christian home. My parents really drove the Christianity aspect about relationship and not religion, building a relationship with Christ. And, my sister and I went to church every single Sunday growing up, and it was an amazing time in our lives of doing that. But I didn't really understand what it really meant to be a Christian until my junior year of high school, when I went through some controversy and some adversity. I would say when I was transferring from Boone to Oak Ridge, went to Oak Ridge in January of my junior year after football season ended, and had the best 3 weeks of my life, meeting Elijah Williams and him introducing me to the football team. It really became a family. And then 3 weeks later, after a full investigation going on behind the scenes that I didn't even know about, my parents were told that I had to go back to Boone High School after an illegal transfer. And I remember that night questioning God and wondering, why is this happening to me? My whole life, I've been focused on this point to get to becoming the starting quarterback in a spread offense and getting the opportunity to get a scholarship in college and live out my dream of being a professional quarterback and playing in the college football era. And that presented and that seemed like it was taken away from me in that night. And I remember, questioning God and saying, why me? Why are you doing this to me? You gave me everything. And then one moment it's taken away from me. So I remember listening to Z8.3. And I challenged God, and it tells us not to do so. But I said, God, you got to show up, or I think that all this is fake, all this is bogus. And sure enough, that very next song was a song that I tempted God. I said, this song better be sitting on our knees. And this is the middle of another song, and I'd listen to it for 45 minutes while doing push-ups and sit-ups, trying to visualize my life and what I wanted to do in the next steps. And sure enough, that next song was Sitting on Our Knees by Toby Mac. And in that moment, my whole body became numb, had chills. I really felt the presence of God and what that meant to be a true Christian and build that relationship with Christ. And so in that moment, I gave my life to God and became a born again believer, and pretty much said, you clearly have a bigger plan than myself. And sure enough, it all worked out. Was able to go back to Oak Ridge in that August and get college scholarships and live out the dream of being a professional athlete.
Awesome. Great testimony. Just a wonderful, commendable to you on your part and who you stand for. Tell you what we're going to do. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, more here on the new Be True Sports new show here on the Varsity Sports Network. Right after this, we're here with Balin Trujillo, the host of the show, coming up right after this here on BSN Orlando. Welcome back, everybody, here to Varsity Sports Network. Bobby Latmore, your host here of the new Be True Sports Show, but the real host is Balin Trujillo. Balin, thanks for joining us here tonight to tell us a little bit about what's coming up on this show, coming up in the next few weeks. And we just talked about faith in your life and things like that. Now let's get into another point of your life, your family. Very inspirational, obviously, in your upbringing and everything else like that, through your young youth years with your parents, through high school, through college, through professional sports, now with your new wife and everything going on like that. Tell us a little bit about your family life right now as being Balin Trujillo.
Yeah, so I had a pretty high standard growing up. I would say, my dad and myself's relationship was pretty intense growing up. I know, he played college football at University of Central Florida, so he was UCF all the way. And, he had that standard, I think, for myself of him being able to play college football and knowing what it takes to get to that level. And so my whole life between me and him was kind of rocky when it talks about, me resisting him. And he would train me 5 to 6 days a week. And, we get in a lot of confrontations with each other. I know that a lot of parents can relate to that because, they want what's best for their kids. And I take pride in my trainings, going back to what I experienced as a kid. My dad wanted the best for me, but I didn't see that. I resented him a lot. And I always thought that he just was always on me and never told me what I did good at. He was always trying to correct me. And I never felt like I was good enough. And every time I played a game, it was always to make him proud, and because I always wanted that good job, and I never really got it. And so growing up with my dad and my relationship like that in all sports, whether that's football, basketball, or baseball, it really affected it until I realized after college, I'm like, wow, looking back in my life, I got to do everything I wanted to do. And it was because of how hard he was and how persistent and how he was wanting to correct me to that, which got me to where I am today. So I really thank him for that. And I tell all the kids that I train, you better cherish your dad, because if you think all the coaches that are hard on you, like myself with the quarterbacks that I train, if you think that they want the best for you, just imagine your own father. So I can only imagine the love that he really was trying to show me through me being the best, right? Because he wanted me to be the best. That's what his goal was. I vividly remember a game literally at Oak Ridge when I played Colonial on homecoming, and I went 13 for 16, 306 yards, 3 touchdowns. And I got in the car and all he talked about was the 3 incomplete passes. And I'm like player of the week. And it was just a great experience for me. And all I wanted was a good job. And it was like, this is what you need to correct. And this is what you could have done better. But, looking at it, when I had this conversation with my dad after I was done playing college, and we sat down and we kind of got all of our emotions out, he told me, why would I tell you the things that you do good at? Because you already know you did good at them. So I always wanted you to correct things you did wrong so you could be the best. So when he had that mentality and that was his motives, that really changed the way I viewed things. And I really appreciate my dad for the rest of my life. And he's my best friend and I love him to death. And I wouldn't trade anything. If we could do it all over again, I would hope he'd be harder on me, even more so, I would think, because I'm pretty hard on the kids that I train. My mom, I'm a mama's boy, so I love my mom to death. She got me out of a lot of situations as a kid. I would always run to her for everything. I have a beautiful younger sister who just recently got engaged to Alex Harrington. Her name is Janae. So we're about 15 months apart. So we grew up together pretty closely. And then I married my high school sweetheart, Mackenzie Logan Trujillo. We met at Polyester Paradise my junior year at Boone High School. She was a sophomore. And I remember telling my mom that night when I got home, that's the girl I'm going to marry. And sure enough, years later, I am married to her now. So that's a little bit about my family. They are everything to me, even though my wife may not think so because of how involved I am with the trainings and the camps and the 7-on-7s and the shows and teaching and just everything I'm doing. but she needs to know that she still is number one, and she will always be the priority. And once she buys in, I'm pretty sure she'll actually love the game of football as well, and it'll be smooth sailing.
Great family atmosphere. Great ways to talk. Tell me a little bit about your football days growing up here in Orlando. Your mom was a big influence on that and a big help with you. She got a couple leagues started so that you guys could play early on, because you guys didn't have that opportunity early on, did you?
Yeah, so I started sports at the age of 4, started with t-ball, then the age of 5 did basketball, age of 6 did flag football, and then 7 I was doing tackle football. So at 7 years old, I was doing all 3 sports year round. My second grade year, my mom started the Junior Braves football organization. And then when I was going into my 8th grade year, she started the Conway Falcons youth football organization. So she started both programs. I was able to play at both. My dad was head coach of my dad was my head coach at Junior Braves, and Coach Hutzel, one of my good friends, Sam Hutzel, who I was competing with in high school at Boone as a quarterback, was my head coach of my 8th grade year. And then went on to Boone High School, went undefeated as a freshman, the first ever freshman undefeated season in Boone history. We went 6-0. Played more receiver that year. I threw 4 touchdowns as a double passer at receiver, got some quarterback action. Then my sophomore year started on JV, threw 8 touchdowns, no interceptions in 8 games. We went 4-4, which is like the first 500 record season they had in over a decade on JV. Was blessed enough to get moved up with my receiver, Nathan Wills, to varsity in 2007, which was, again, my sophomore year. And that year was the same year Boone went undefeated and went all the way to the state championship. So I was a part of that, which was really cool to be part of a state championship. And, again, making history again in my second year at Boone High School. Junior year, went all the way to the state semifinals on varsity, split time with Sam Hutzel. He was the starter, and I would come in when we were winning, and we'd split time and stuff. And it was really cool. My first touchdown I ever threw on varsity was against Cypress Creek on homecoming, threw and ran a touchdown in the same game. And I actually told my wife earlier that day, at the time was my girlfriend, Mackenzie, in a card, that I was going to score and run, or I was going to run and throw my first touchdown for her that night. And sure enough, it happened. So I'm glad I could live up to what I wrote. Then after my junior year, ended up transferring to Oak Ridge High School in winter of that year. And again, we talked about my faith story. That's how I became a Christian, was through that experience. Had to go back to Boone. And then my parents got a lease in the Oak Ridge district. So I lived in 2 different places my senior year. 6 months of the year was in the Oak Ridge district in an apartment, shared a room with my sister, which is pretty humbling. And then after the football season, we were able to move back into my old house. I still went to Oak Ridge and finished out the year there, graduated in 2010. Was blessed enough to have over 8 scholarship offers, was invited to an all-star game, committed to the University of South Florida after my unofficial visit with my dad. It was a really cool experience. I was actually on my way to another visit when I got the call from Coach Peter Voss, who was a quarterback coach at USF, and offered me, which was a really cool experience. And I told the coach on my Faulkner visit, I said, well, actually my mom did. She told him, yeah, he's going to USF. So it was a funny experience. Went to USF, was probably the best year overall, best experience overall as college, as being a college student, being in a big time atmosphere like that, playing big time college football, playing the Division I level, which was always a goal of mine. So I got to check that off the bucket list. Stayed in the green and gold, which was Oak Ridge. So it was cool. I felt like I was still at home. Had a really cool year learning under BJ Daniels, who most people know as the starting quarterback at USF. Did really good things there. Got to learn under him. Skip Holtz was my head coach. He was a really cool guy. Invited me over several times to his house. I just felt really at home and like a family. It was like my home away from home. But after my spring season in 2012 at USF, I got to the point where I felt like my love for football was bigger than the love of being at the Division I level. I wanted to play, didn't want to wait for an opportunity. So I ended up getting a transfer release, and I committed to Weber International University. It was the first school that reached out to me after I got my release. I talked to Weber International, Florida International, Jacksonville University, FIT, and I believe Marshall and Middle Tennessee. I reached out to after I got my release, but Weber contacted me within 4 hours of my release and went on a visit and committed there, gave me a full scholarship, which is rare in NAIA, but it didn't pay for nothing, and went there and started. And then I ended up blowing out my ACL in the spring of 2013 on the very last play. Another humbling experience. I had everything in my life, and it was one of the moments that I knew God needed to show up, because I was getting away from what I grew up on and the faith that I had, and was doing my own thing and felt invincible. And sure enough, in one play, everything got taken away from me. It was actually 3 days after my 21st birthday. And it was the only event my parents ever missed in my entire life in a sporting event. At least one of them has been to everything, and both of them decided not to go because they found out that I was at a party on my 21st birthday and did things that they weren't approval of after they saw on social media. And so they decided not to go. And sure enough, I tore my ACL, which is, again, a very big humbling experience. But I was at peace because I knew God was really putting me back to where I needed to be. Ended up playing my career at Weber in 2014, won a Sun Conference championship my senior year, which was the first ever in their school's history as well. So I got to be part of that. And then I was able to sign a professional contract with the Central Florida Jaguars, which was a cool experience because, it was through a coach that knew me, that was coaching me, and he reached out to their head coach, and they had an injury at their quarterback position the last 2 games. So I signed with the Central Florida Jaguars and got to finish the season there, starting the last 2 games, and ended up throwing 5 touchdowns, had a rushing touchdown. And through my 2 games of experience and the production that I had, I was actually invited to play in the EIF Turkey Bowl All-Star game in Georgia, which was Florida versus Georgia at North Carolina. So it was like a 3-way team of All-Stars in the arena. And I actually won MVP of that game, threw 5 touchdowns, rushed a touchdown, also caught another touchdown. So I had 7 total touchdowns in the game and won the MVP of the entire Turkey Bowl All-Star game for Per Arena. With that, I was able to get invited to a pro day at Florida State University, where I threw in front of all 32 NFL teams, which is a crazy experience, being the only one that threw that day. Threw to Naquan Murray, Jaquez Patrick, and others at Florida State. So it was a pretty cool experience for myself. And through that, I got to talk to Seattle Seahawks. I also talked to, I think, the Rams. So it was pretty cool to actually talk to other professional organizations in the NFL and have the opportunity to, you never know, get a phone call because that day I put on a show, only had 2 incompletes. And after that experience, was able to sign with the Florida Tarpons Pro Arena team in Fort Myers, Florida. Played there a whole year under Chris Wallace, who was an arena legend at quarterback, played at Toledo. And if anybody knows the arena game, he is definitely up there in stats wise and wins and championships. So I got to learn under him. And then I signed again with the Tarpons in 2019. And it was finally my team after Chris Wallace retired after, I think, 20 seasons playing arena. And right before the season started, the team folded. And as soon as the team folded that night, the Orlando Predators reached out to me and said, "Hey, we got a spot for you. We have injury after injury at the quarterback position. We have no productivity. So we want to see what you're about." And I went out there and they signed me that night. Went to 1 practice and they were like, "Yep, you're our guy for the future." They signed me. Ben Bennett was the offensive coordinator, who's now the head coach of the Orlando Predators, was the guy that brought me in under Kenny McIntyre, and had a great season there. Finished in my first game of action. We actually played the number 1 team in the league, the Carolina Cobras, at Carolina. And it was their first loss they had suffered in literally 10 years, I believe, at home. It for me, I got to play the professional level. I got to play Division I football. I got to play college football in general. And I got to, do the things that I wanted to do as an athlete in the game of football. And I finally figured out, my passion is definitely training kids. And that's now where I solely focus on is training and developing young quarterbacks so that they too can live out the dream that I did.
Incredible story, young man. That's awesome. Awesome. So with the experiences that you have, you've got a lot to offer these kids that you do train. Tell you what, we're here with Balin Trujillo, the new host for the B-True Sports Show. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back right after this here on the Varsity Sports Network. We're back here with Balin Trujillo, the new host for the B-True Sports Show, coming off Varsity Sports Network this new spring. I should say winter and spring coming up here pretty soon. And Balin, what a great story you've told so far about your personal experiences. And again, just before the break, I explained how well and how good this is going to be for you to take those experiences to these kids nowadays, and the things that you can get across to them, not so much on the football field, but off the football field as well. What are you kind of looking for in this training program that you're doing right now? You're obviously the owner of the B-True quarterback camps and training programs here around the country, basically. Tell us a little bit about that, and tell us a little bit about how you train and what you get across to these kids.
Yeah, so I started my quarterback training business in 2015 of January after my playing career in college. And that's, I always wanted to do that. I actually had a conversation with my uncle and at we were sitting in a hot tub in a random hotel. And he was like, "You know what? After your playing career, why don't you think about doing camps?" So I'm like, maybe not so much camps, but let me focus on the quarterback position. So when I graduated in 2014 at Weber, January, I started training and I tried to get a flyer up and I tried to get a logo. And once that started going, I started reaching out to the kids that I knew that are close to my family. The first person that I ever reached out to, my mom got me in contact with, was with Chris St. John, who had two younger sons, Casey St. John and Mercer St. John. Also had a third son, Parker, who's a receiver. So they came out to a training, and I remember training Casey for the first time, and I knew in that moment, like, this is what I was called to do. I had so much fun doing it, and to see the kid actually work hard and buy into what I was telling them, that was my first ever client. So then it just grew from there. I put it on YouTube, and then one led to two, two led to four, four led to 10, 10 led to 20. And then with my first year of training quarterbacks, a whole year from January to January, I had over 30 clients. And so it really blew up fast. And then I had the opportunity to get into the 7-on-7 world based on what I was doing. Ratcliffe, Coach Rat, who was the owner of Rat Pack, reached out to me and said, "Hey, how would you feel being my quarterback coach for our 7-on-7 team, which is a nationally recognized program?" And I was like, "Heck yeah, that would be an honor." So I took that position and met some really big time quarterbacks and was able to learn from them, as well as give them some of my knowledge. And then through that was able to get into the Elite 11, and which was a crazy opportunity. And actually Coach Lang got me into that because he's the head D-line coach for the Elite 11 in the opening. So he had connections with Brian Stump, who's in charge of the entire camp series, and reached out to me. Was like, "Hey, I see what you're doing in Orlando. Let's have you come up to Miami and Orlando and do these camps." And so I was able to meet some of the top quarterbacks in the country, and through that learn some things under other quarterback trainers that were part of the Elite 11, and which had helped me in my training business, and build relationships as well, as like Steven Garcia and Adrian McPherson and stuff like that. So through those relationships, I was able to expand on my business and come up with the idea of doing camps, right? So now I went from my B-True quarterback training to now B-True Advanced QB camp that I started with Steven Garcia, former USC quarterback, South Carolina. And when we did that, we had a really good response. Our first camp, we had over 40 quarterbacks. And so I was like, wow, this actually works. And so from there, we expanded it from quarterbacks to now all offensive skill and no linemen. And I was able to make contacts with Quincy Carter with the Dallas Cowboys. I was able to do Kevin Olsen, who's my former Miami and Charlotte quarterback, whose brother is Greg Olsen, who was also part of my virtual school. I was able to meet, guys like Jeff Higgins, who was the offensive coordinator at the Orlando Predators at the time, and now one of my good friends, and now the head coach at Toho. And then again, expand through other guys that I looked up to, like Noel Devine was one of the kids that I watched his highlights as a kid in high school. Now he's working for me in my camps down in Fort Myers, along with Ed Gant, who was a big time receiver for the Buccaneers at the time as well. And now he's coaching and training wide receivers. And then, it branches all the way out to, guys from New Jersey and Charlotte and stuff like that. So it's been really awesome. And then, through these experiences and expanding my trainings, I was able to do a virtual school when COVID hit, which was a way to, expand my business as well. Now, not only are we doing camps, not only am I doing quarterback training, now I can reach these kids all across the country through virtual school and Zoom meetings. And I did that with Quincy Carter and Kevin Olsen. And I had celebrity guests on there like Jeff Blake, who bought in, was a former Cincinnati Bengals quarterback, had also, everybody knows this guy's name. Charlie Ward was at Florida State, Mr. Football, everything, basketball player. He was on my Zoom call. Also, Daniel Jones, I got to meet the starting quarterback for the New York Giants. He was on my virtual school because of the connections that Kevin Olsen had. So I had some big time names on my show or in my virtual school. So man, through that, it's been crazy. And then so through the social media postings of my virtual school, Kurt Warner actually saw it on my social media. He followed me on Twitter, and then he reached out to me randomly I had received a phone call from him at 10:30 at night, randomly FaceTime. And I'm like, whoa, this is Kurt Warner. So I mean, it's just unreal what my training has led to since 2015 all the way up to now to 2021 in January. So this what would mark 6 years on the dot around this time when I started my quarterback training business. So in 6 years to start from one kid all the way now to doing virtual schools, doing camps across the country, meeting some of the best to ever play the position, it's just been very humbling. And through these experiences, I want to make sure that kids understand, one, faith always comes first. You can't do nothing without Christ. You will never be able to live out your dreams and go smoothly without putting your faith first in anything that you do. And number two is building a relationship, networking. You don't know who you're going to run across. You don't know who you're going to meet when you're training with other quarterbacks or you're going to these big time camps, like who you're going to meet that you might be competing against one day or even teaming up with. You just don't know. And then lastly, I always drive the point of always respect your father or your father figure in your life, because they want what's best for you. Again, I train kids from all over the country and I'm hard on them, but I love each kid that I train or coach. And I just want to let them know that no matter the love that I pour out to them, it does not compare to the love of their father or their coaches in their life or their father figures because they want the absolute best. So if they think that I want the best, just imagine, their own parent or their own sibling or whatever they are that's related to them, what they want for them. And so with that being said, I've had the opportunities to have, speak at different events, and through my trainings and the sex that I've had, I've been blessed to say that I'm partnered with Body Armor, which is the nation's #1 sports drink. So I'm proud to say that I'm sponsored. That's a crazy, idea to think that, Body Armor reached out to me and was like, we see what you're doing, and we want to be a part of your journey and your success as a trainer. So Body Armor is definitely come into the picture with my trainings, and I always represent them, and they are the best sports drink. There is nothing better. Gatorade has nothing on it. So definitely check that out. And then also with my social media presence, with the trainings and what I'd say is the I wouldn't say cockiness, but just always seeing me in the media and always this, it's led me to Heath Ziegler, which reached out to me and now started this high school sports show that everybody recognizes me on. So that was all through training. People know me through my training work and what I do on social media with my trainings and camps and stuff. So Heath Ziegler reached out to me and was like, hey, I see you train a lot of guys in Central Florida and a lot of personnel. I'm trying to do this sports show with the covering high school sports, and how about you do this with me? And I'm like, heck yeah, I'm all on board. And sure enough, Cox Media was all aboard with it, and they got me in. And so now I do the high school sports show, which everybody knows about, my predictions and the crazy absurd things that I say. But at the end of the day, it's all about the kids, and I love the kids. And yeah, I can get controversial and say some crazy stuff, but at the end of the day, I know where my heart stands, and at the end of the day, my heart has got me to where I am today.
Great. That's awesome, Balin. That's fantastic to where you are, where you've come from. #1 priority is the kids. You may have a lot of fun with a lot of the teams and a lot of the coaches around the Orlando area, which is on the sports show and things like that. We were very fortunate up here on Varsity Sports Network to cover some of those high school sports shows there at a Gators or somewhere else where we were at. So that we really, really do enjoy that. And that's a partnership we definitely look to continue on in the next coming years like that. But right now it's the Be True Sports Show. And we got a lot more coming at you here soon. So don't go anywhere, folks. We'll be right back here on the Varsity Sports Network. Welcome back, everybody, here to the Varsity Sports Network, the Be True Sports Show with the host, Balin Trujillo. Balin, thanks for joining us here tonight. A lot going on right now. I know you're busy schedule and everything like that. Thanks for tuning in with us tonight and giving us a little preemptive ideas of what's coming up on this show in the next few weeks and the next few months. So we're really excited to have you on board the Varsity Sports Network with the Be True Sports Show. So tell me what's coming up on this show. What are you looking forward to do?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to having the listeners and the viewers get to know my quarterbacks that I train. I train so many quarterbacks just in Central Florida alone, over 160 of them to be exact. And it's just been a blessing. Every week I get new kids from here, from there, and they're traveling from all over the state, even sometimes out of the state. So I want to get this show to be about the kids and get to know them other than what they watch on Huddle or what they can see on Friday nights if they're playing different quarterbacks that I train. So I really wanted to focus around them as well so that they get some love because it's about them at the end of the day. It's not about me, it's about them. So you get to know about the quarterbacks. Also, you'll get to hear some hot topics. Again, I touch back to the high school football scoreboard show. I'm very controversial when it comes to different topics. I speak my mind. I'm all opinionated. So you'll get to know my thoughts on the hot topics around the sports world. It doesn't even have to be just in Central Florida. It could be just a topic that's going on, just like the Super Bowl this weekend, right? So Super Bowl's coming up. Go Chiefs. I think the Chiefs are going to beat Tom Brady. Tom Brady did an amazing job this year. But, Tampa Bay, I just don't think they have enough firepower to beat the Chiefs. But see, something simple like that, right? I'm going to give you my opinions on everything, what's going on. And I look forward to having you guys tune in every week to hear these things. And if you guys have any, comments, obviously the videos will be posted and I'd love to hear from them on social media, or you can just reach out to me personally and say, hey man, I don't agree with you on that. That's great. We can have dialogue as long as you come with facts, because that's all I do is speak facts. So again, guys, I appreciate you guys for listening on the first ever episode of the Be True Sports Show. And I look forward to having some fun with you this year. And I'm telling you what, you're in for a treat. And quarterbacks, stay tuned because you're going to hear a lot about tips that can help you prepare in your game as well, but also get to know some of the guys that you might be competing against or teaming up with here in the near future.
Balin, thank you very much for tuning in with us tonight. Appreciate your time. But the Be True Sports Show coming at you live here on the Varsity Sports Network. We look forward to it. So from tonight, Balin, thank you very much. Bobby Latmore signing off. We'll see you guys next time here on the Be True Sports Show.